"If you can play this song, I'll give you my car," shouted Marcus Chun, pointing at the worn guitar case near the prison yard bench. The brand-new Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, metallic black with red racing stripes, sat gleaming in the visitor's parking lot. Worth over $85,000. The man sitting on the bench didn't even look up. David Torres, 47 years old, had been released from Preston State Penitentiary exactly 3 hours ago. 22 years behind bars for a crime he'd insisted he didn't commit. His gray-streaked hair and calloused hands told the story of 2 decades stolen from his life. He wore donated clothes that hung loose on his thin frame, and clutched a battered guitar case, his only possession from before. Marcus, early 20s, designer sunglasses perched on his head, was surrounded by 3 friends filming everything on their phones. They'd been streaming live outside the prison gates, hunting for content when David walked out. "Yo, check this out," Marcus laughed to his 200,000 TikTok followers. "Ex-con thinks he can play guitar. Let's test him." David finally raised his eyes. They were dark brown, surprisingly clear despite everything. "I'm just trying to get to the bus station, son." "Son?" Marcus mocked, stepping closer. "Old man, I'm giving you a shot at 85 grand. All you gotta do is play one song." He smirked. "Capriccio Arabe by Francisco Tarrega. You know it." A murmur went through Marcus's friends. That piece wasn't just difficult, it was a classical guitar masterwork requiring years of conservatory training. Asking a random person to play it was cruel enough. Asking someone who just walked out of prison? Pure mockery. "Why that song?" David asked quietly, his fingers unconsciously moving as if remembering something. "Because it's impossible for someone like you," Marcus shot back. "Complex tremolo technique, perfect rhythm, emotional depth. But hey, if you can play it perfectly, the Hellcat's yours. If you fail, you admit on camera that you're just another." "I'll play it," David interrupted, his voice steady. Marcus blinked, surprised. He'd expected the man to walk away. His friends exchanged glances. This was better than they'd hoped. David opened the guitar case with deliberate slowness. Inside was a classical guitar that looked ancient, scratched, faded, with strings that seemed ready to snap. But the way David lifted it, cradled it in his arms, revealed something unexpected. This wasn't just any guitar. This was his voice. "Before I play," David said, looking directly at Marcus, "you should know something." Marcus rolled his eyes. "What, you want a sad backstory? Let me guess, you learned guitar in prison." "No," David replied, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. "I'm just wondering why a kid driving an $85,000 car would choose a song that requires a decade of classical training to execute properly. That's oddly specific." For a fraction of a second, something flickered in Marcus's expression, not quite guilt, but recognition. He recovered quickly. "Just play, old man." A small crowd had gathered. Prison visitors, guards on break, people from nearby shops. Everyone sensed they were about to witness something, though no one knew what. David positioned his fingers on the fretboard. His posture straightened. The transformation was immediate and startling. The exhausted ex-convict disappeared, replaced by someone else entirely. "This song," David said softly, "was the last thing I played before my life ended 22 years ago." If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Marcus opened his mouth to make another joke, but David's fingers were already moving. The first notes of Capriccio Arabe filled the air, and everyone froze. The sound wasn't just good. It was impossible. The tremolo technique, rapid alternation of fingers on a single string to create a sustained shimmering effect, is notoriously difficult. Most classical guitarists struggle with it for years. David executed it flawlessly from the first measure. Marcus's smirk evaporated. His friends stopped their mocking commentary, phones still recording but silent now. The melody cascaded through the air with crystalline clarity, each note perfectly articulated despite the worn strings. That's actually good," whispered one of Marcus's friends, a guy named Tyler who'd taken guitar lessons as a kid. But Marcus wasn't ready to concede. "Wait for it. The hard part's coming." He was right. Capriccio Arabe transitions into a section requiring simultaneous bass line, harmony, and melody, 3 independent voices played by one person on one instrument. It's where even skilled players falter. David didn't falter. His thumb maintained a steady bass rhythm while his fingers wove the upper voices together. More than technical precision, though, was the emotion. The music wasn't just notes. It was longing, it was loss, it was 22 years of silence finally breaking free. An older woman in the growing crowd pressed her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. A prison guard who'd been about to leave his shift stood transfixed. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't supposed to happen. He pulled out his phone, frantically scrolling through something while David played. The crowd didn't notice Marcus's panic. They were mesmerized. David had reached the piece's emotional climax, a section where the melody soars above arpeggiated chords, requiring perfect control and deep musical understanding. Then something unexpected happened. David began adding subtle variations, small ornamentations that weren't in the original score but enhanced the emotional impact. He was improvising within Tarega's framework, something only a master would attempt. He's not just playing it, Tyler breathed. He's making it his own. Marcus's face had gone pale. He looked at his phone again, then at David, then back at his phone. Whatever he'd found was making him increasingly agitated. David transitioned into the final section, the resolution. His eyes were closed now, completely absorbed. A bead of sweat rolled down his temple despite the cool afternoon air. His fingers moved with the confidence of muscle memory that had survived 2 decades of dormancy. Marcus suddenly stepped forward. Stop. Just stop for a second. David's eyes opened slowly, his fingers stilling on the strings. The abrupt silence felt violent after such beauty. What's the problem? David asked calmly. The problem is, Marcus stammered, looking at his friends for support but finding none. The problem is you're playing it too well. How does a guy who just got out of prison play like that? You asked me to play it, David replied simply. I'm playing it. Who taught you? Marcus demanded, his voice rising. Where did you learn classical guitar? The question hung in the air. David studied Marcus for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. The San Francisco Conservatory of Music, David answered quietly. Class of 1998. I was on track for a solo career until I was arrested in 2002. The crowd murmured. A conservatory graduate. That explained the technique, but raised bigger questions. Marcus's hands were shaking slightly. What were you arrested for? Armed robbery and assault, David said, his voice steady despite the shame in his eyes. A music store in Berkeley. Except I didn't do it. Everyone in prison says they're innocent, Marcus shot back, but his voice lacked conviction. Most of them are lying, David agreed. I'm not. He paused. But that's not why you chose this song, is it, Marcus? You didn't pick Capriccio Arabe randomly. You knew exactly what you were doing. Marcus took a step back, genuine fear flashing across his face. How do you know my name? He whispered. I never told you my name. David smiled sadly. You have your mother's eyes. And her last name. Chen. Dr. Patricia Chen was my defense attorney 22 years ago. The revelation hit like thunder. Tyler's phone slipped from his hand. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Marcus stood frozen, his entire worldview fracturing. The homeless ex-con he'd been mocking wasn't a random victim. This man knew his mother. This man was connected to his family's past. She tried so hard to prove my innocence, David continued, his voice thick with emotion. Worked pro bono for 2 years. But the evidence was stacked against me, and... She never stopped believing you, Marcus interrupted, his voice cracking. Even after you were convicted. She kept files. She kept investigating. He looked at the ground. She died 3 years ago. Lung cancer. And I found her case files in her office last month. The confession spilled out of him like a dam breaking. The crowd had gone completely silent. I found your name. Your case. Everything she'd collected trying to prove your innocence. Marcus's hands were shaking badly now. And I found proof. Real proof that you didn't do it. The parking lot had gone deadly quiet. Marcus's words, I found proof that you didn't do it, hung in the air like an accusation and an apology all at once. David's fingers tightened on the guitar neck. 22 years. 8,000 days of insisting on his innocence to people who'd stopped listening after the first week. What kind of proof? David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus pulled out his phone with trembling hands. Security footage. The real footage from that night. Not the edited version the prosecution used. He scrolled frantically. My mom had a private investigator track down the original recordings from surrounding businesses. The timestamps prove you were 3 blocks away when the robbery happened. Tyler moved closer, reading over Marcus's shoulder. Dude, is this real? It's real, Marcus said miserably. Mom spent her last years trying to get a retrial, but she died before she could file the motion. And I. His voice broke. I found all of this a month ago and did nothing. I was too scared. Too angry at her for spending our family's money on this case instead of you, David finished quietly. Marcus nodded, shame washing over his face. I resented you. Some guy I never met who took my mom away from me. She missed my high school graduation because she was interviewing witnesses for your case. She missed my college acceptance because she was filing appeals. The confession was raw, painful. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. So I came here today to. Marcus struggled for words. I don't even know. To see if you were worth it? To prove you were just another criminal so I could throw away her files and forget about it. By humiliating me with an impossible song, David said, understanding dawning. Except it backfired, Tyler interjected, looking at David with newfound respect. Because you actually are who she said you were. A real musician. Someone who didn't belong in prison. David carefully set the guitar down, his hands shaking now too. Your mother was the only person who believed me. Even my own family gave up after the conviction. She visited me monthly for the first 5 years until, he stopped, emotion choking his words. Until my dad made her choose, Marcus said bitterly. Her family or your case. She chose your case. They divorced when I was 12. The weight of that revelation settled over everyone. Patricia Chun had sacrificed her marriage, her relationship with her son, and ultimately died trying to free an innocent man. I have something you need to see, David said suddenly. He reached into his donated jacket and pulled out a worn envelope. Your mother gave this to me during her last visit. 6 years ago. She said to only open it if I ever got out and she was gone. Marcus stared at the envelope like it might explode. His mother's handwriting on the front, for Marcus. When he's ready. I opened it this morning at the bus station, David admitted. Before I even knew you'd be here. With shaking hands, Marcus took the envelope. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photo showed a young Patricia Chun with a teenage boy, Marcus at maybe 16, both smiling at a piano recital. Marcus began reading the letter aloud, his voice cracking. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and David is free. I know you resented my work on his case. I know it cost us time together. But I need you to understand, justice isn't about convenient timing or easy choices. David Torres was a prodigy, like you. When I saw his case, I saw a brilliant musician destroyed by a corrupt system. I couldn't save your father's love. I couldn't make you understand. But I could save an innocent man. The evidence is in my office files, box marked Berkeley 2002. Finish what I started. Make it right. And Marcus, he can teach you what I never could about music and sacrifice. Love always, Mom. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. The carefully constructed narrative he'd built about his mother, selfish, obsessed, neglectful, crumbled completely. David spoke gently. She talked about you constantly. Showed me every photo, every report card. She was so proud when you got into Berklee College of Music. Marcus looked up sharply. How did you know I went to Berkeley? That wasn't public. Because 3 weeks ago, I received a letter from an anonymous attorney, David revealed. It said my conviction was being reviewed based on new evidence. It said if I had anywhere to go after release, I should have a plan ready. Tyler's eyes widened. Wait. You knew Marcus might be here. I knew Patricia Chen's son might be here, David corrected. I didn't know he'd challenge me to play my own audition piece. Marcus froze. What? Capriccio Arabe was the piece I performed for my conservatory entrance exam, David explained. It's not in my case file. The only person who knew that was your mother. She must have told you. The final piece clicked into place. Marcus had found his mother's notes. He'd seen David's name connected to that specific piece. And whether consciously or not, he'd recreated the moment before David's life was stolen, the moment a young guitarist played beautifully enough to earn his future. Finish the song, Marcus said suddenly, wiping his tears. Please. Finish what you started. David picked up the guitar again, but this time the atmosphere had transformed completely. The mockery was gone. This was no longer a cruel challenge. It was a memorial service for Patricia Chun, played by the man she'd died trying to save. His fingers found the strings where he'd left off. The final section of Capriccio Arabe is technically simpler than the middle, but emotionally devastating. It's a goodbye, a reflection, acceptance of loss. David played it with his eyes locked on Marcus. Every note was a message. Your mother was right. Your mother mattered. Your mother's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The crowd had swelled to over 50 people now. Prison staff, visitors, passers-by, all transfixed. Many were crying openly. Even the guards who'd processed David's release that morning stood with their hands over their hearts. When the final chord rang out and faded into silence, no one moved for several seconds. Then the applause erupted, thunderous, cathartic, transformative. But Marcus wasn't applauding. He was staring at his phone again, and this time his expression had shifted from guilt to determination. I'm calling my mom's law partner right now, Marcus announced loudly enough for the crowd to hear. Robert Kim. He's been waiting for me to authorize releasing the evidence. He looked at David. I'm sorry I waited. I'm sorry I was selfish and angry and... You were grieving, David interrupted gently. You're allowed to be human. Marcus shook his head violently. No. I let you sit in prison for 3 extra weeks because I was too much of a coward to admit my mom was right and I was wrong. He hit dial on his phone. But that ends now. The conversation was brief but intense. Marcus put the phone on speaker so everyone could hear. Robert? It's Marcus Chun. Yes. I know. I'm authorizing full release of the Berkeley case files. All of them. He paused, listening. I don't care about the media attention. I don't care if it exposes the department's mistakes. Release everything. Today. Robert Kim's voice crackled through the speaker. Marcus, are you certain? Once this goes public, there's no walking it back. Your mother's reputation will be examined. Your family will be in the spotlight. And you'll be admitting you sat on exculpatory evidence. I'm sure, Marcus said firmly. David Torres has been in prison for 22 years for a crime he didn't commit. My mom knew it. I know it. Everyone's about to know it. I'll have the press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning, Robert confirmed. And Marcus? Your mother would be proud of you. Marcus ended the call and looked at David. It's going to take time. Appeals, hearings, official exoneration. But you'll be declared innocent. Officially. David nodded slowly, processing. 22 years of his life stolen, but finally someone was listening. The car's still yours, Marcus said suddenly. The Hellcat. I meant what I said. You played the song. It's yours. But David was already shaking his head. I don't want your car, Marcus. Then what do you want? Marcus asked desperately. Tell me what I can do to make this right. Money? My mom left me her house. It's yours if you want it. Anything. The crowd waited breathless for David's answer. I want you to finish your degree at Berkeley, David said quietly. Your mom told me you dropped out after 2 years. Marcus's face flushed. How did you? She was heartbroken about it, David continued. Said you had more natural talent than anyone she'd ever met, but you were throwing it away. He held up the battered guitar. I want you to take this guitar. It's not worth much, but it kept me alive in prison. It reminded me who I was. I can't take your guitar, Marcus protested. You can, and you will, David insisted. And I want you to finish your music degree. Get your career back on track. Live the life I couldn't. He paused, emotion thick in his voice. That's how you honor your mother. Not with guilt or apology, but by becoming the musician she knew you could be. Marcus took the guitar with shaking hands, cradling it like a sacred object. And one more thing, David added, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. When you graduate, when you have your first real concert, I want a front row seat. Because your mother never got to see you perform professionally, but I will. For both of us. The crowd erupted in applause again, but this time Marcus was crying too hard to acknowledge it. He clutched the guitar and nodded, unable to speak. Tyler stepped forward hesitantly. Mr. Torres? We recorded everything. The whole challenge, the conversation, all of it. It's already going viral on my channel. He showed his phone, 240,000 views and climbing. Do you want us to take it down? David considered for a moment, then shook his head. Leave it up. Let people see what your justice system did to an innocent man. Let them see what one determined lawyer tried to do about it. Let them see her son finding the courage to finish her work. A woman from the crowd pushed forward, an older lady with kind eyes. Mr. Torres, I'm Janet Pierce. I run a music therapy program at the community center downtown. If you need work, we could use someone with your skills. More voices joined in. A guitar shop owner offering a new instrument. A lawyer offering pro bono representation for the exoneration process. A family offering temporary housing. The community was rallying. David Torres had walked out of prison 3 hours ago with nothing. Now he had something far more valuable than Marcus's Hellcat. He had proof, vindication, and a future. 6 months later, David Torres stood backstage at Berklee College of Music's recital hall, adjusting the collar of his first suit in 22 years. The community center job had turned into something more, a full teaching position at a music academy, working with at-risk youth. His official exoneration had come through 3 months ago. The press conference Robert Kim organized had exposed systemic failures in the Berklee Police Department's evidence handling. 2 detectives were under investigation. The district attorney who prosecuted David's case had resigned in disgrace. More importantly, David had received a formal apology from the state and a settlement that, while it couldn't return his stolen years, provided financial stability. He'd used part of it to establish the Patricia Chen Memorial Scholarship for underprivileged music students. Now he waited in the wings, watching the stage crew make final adjustments. Tonight was Marcus Chen's senior recital, his triumphant return to Berklee after a 3-year absence. Janet Pierce, who'd become a close friend, touched his arm. Nervous. For him, yes, David admitted. He's worked so hard to get back here. The auditorium was packed. Tyler and Marcus's other friends filled the front rows. Robert Kim sat with Patricia Chen's extended family. And in a surprising turn, several of David's former cellmates who'd been released had made the trip, wanting to see the man whose nightly guitar practice had given them hope. The lights dimmed. Marcus walked onto stage carrying the battered guitar David had given him 6 months ago, except it wasn't battered anymore. He'd had it professionally restored by a master luthier, preserving its character while bringing out its true voice. Before I begin, Marcus said into the microphone, his voice steady and clear, I need to acknowledge someone. David Torres, could you stand please? David rose reluctantly as a spotlight found him. The audience applauded, many recognizing him from the viral video that now had over 15 million views. 6 months ago, I tried to humiliate this man, Marcus continued. I challenged him to play an impossible song, hoping he'd fail so I could feel better about my own failures. Instead, he played it beautifully. He showed me what real strength looks like. What real forgiveness looks like. His voice caught. My mother spent her life fighting for justice. She died believing in David's innocence when everyone else had given up. Tonight, I play for both of them. Marcus positioned the restored guitar and began to play, not Capriccio Arabe, but an original composition. The piece was called Patricia's Light, and it wove together elements of classical technique with modern emotional depth. It spoke of loss and redemption, of mistakes and second chances. David listened with tears streaming down his face. The music was extraordinary. Marcus had inherited his mother's fierce determination and transformed it into art. When the final note faded, the standing ovation lasted 5 full minutes. Marcus took his bows, then walked directly off stage to David. Thank you, Marcus said simply, embracing him. For everything. You did this yourself, David replied. Your mother always knew you would. Later, at the reception, Tyler approached David with his phone. Mr. Torres, you need to see this. The video we posted led to 17 other wrongful conviction cases being reviewed. 4 people have been exonerated so far because prosecutors are finally looking at old evidence properly. David stared at the screen, overwhelmed. Patricia Chen's legacy was multiplying beyond anything she could have imagined. A young woman approached timidly, one of David's music therapy students. Mr. Torres? I got accepted to the conservatory. They gave me the Patricia Chen scholarship. He hugged her tightly, unable to speak. As the evening wound down, Marcus found David on the recital hall balcony, looking out over the city lights. I have something for you, Marcus said, pulling out an envelope. Inside were keys, not to the Hellcat, which he'd sold months ago, but to something else. My mom's house, Marcus explained. I can't live there. Too many memories. But you should have it. She'd want you to. David shook his head. Marcus, I can't. It's not charity, Marcus interrupted. It's justice. You lost your home, your career, 22 years of your life. I can't give those back. But I can give you this. Please. David accepted the keys with shaking hands. A home. After 2 decades of concrete cells and halfway houses, he would have a home. Your mother was right about everything, David said quietly. About my innocence. About your talent. About justice being worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Marcus nodded, looking out at the city. I spent years being angry at her for choosing your case over me. I finally understand. She didn't choose you over me. She chose justice over comfort. She taught me the most important lesson by example, even if I was too stubborn to see it. David smiled. And what lesson was that? That the best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you, Marcus replied. It's becoming so successful, so good at what you do, that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. You didn't just survive prison, you came out and immediately started teaching, helping, building. That's real strength. The 2 men stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights blur through grateful tears. Justice had taken 22 years, but it had finally arrived. And in its wake came something even more valuable, healing purpose, and the knowledge that one woman's unwavering belief in truth had changed countless lives. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel for more stories about resilience, redemption, and the power of never giving up on what's right. Share it with someone who needs to hear that justice, though slow, is always worth fighting for.